Hello, and welcome to Sonic Bytes, the freewheeling conversation and interview series for the eclectic music lover. This week, we're very excited to welcome to the podcast guitarist, founder of Crouton Cannon, and my bandmate, Alex Marshall. So I'm personally super excited to have Alex on the podcast. He's a guitarist, composer, session musician, and teacher from the UK. After completing a master's degree in biology, Alex has pursued a wide-ranging music career, performing with a bunch of professional groups in London and the South East, and recording as a session musician for multiple projects. He asked me to join the band Crouton Cannon in 2018 on bass, which brought together like-minded musicians in singer Louise O'Connor, keyboardist Daniel Marks, and drummer Ben Swan, to record an album in 2019 aboard London's Soup Studios, a recording studio on a converted lightship boat. Yep, a studio on a boat, you heard that right. We've since released 5 singles: Credit, Expressing, Find the One, Boogie Blight, and our newest single, Share. As Alex is the primary songwriter, it's been a really fun journey playing and interpreting the song so far as a group, which blends together my favourite elements of funk, rock and soul. And I'm so excited to share a bit of the process and fun of being in the band on this podcast. In this episode, we discuss the subject matter of our new single Share in detail, and talk about what it's like to work with a producer, how that affects his songwriting, how he founded Crouton Cannon, and his journey as a guitarist so far. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple or Stitcher, and leave a review wherever you can, or like the video and subscribe to the channel on YouTube, as it really helps support the show. And while you're at it, maybe go on Spotify and have a listen to my band Crouton Cannon as well. We hope you enjoyed the episode. No worries. Shall we give a clap?
Let's give a clap.
So do we just give a clap? But don't
everyone has to clap.
Don't bust your.
And don't clap at
levels.
the same time.
Yeah.
There we go. It's Johnny just staying way out of it this time.
Yeah, no, I'm not getting into that crossfire.
Man.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for... Go on.
No, it's just funny because this is such an interesting interview because it's very like, which way is the interview going?
That's very true.
I mean, obviously, welcome to the show, Alex. At this point, we've introduced you, but it's like, I've got questions for you two as guitarists. Leo can ask us stuff because we're like me, Johnny, and you, Alex, are in Crouton Cannon. And obviously Alex can ask us stuff about doing a podcast or whatever. So it's like, there's so many different ways this could go, I guess.
There's a lot of crossed wires and sort of like...
Very incestuous, I think.
Very, very incestuous indeed.
I was trying not to say that word, but I guess it is, I mean, I'd like to think of us as we have a familial vibe to our band, but just to go further down that hole. But
By not saying incestuous and saying familial vibe, it almost makes it worse. I think now we've got incestuous out of the way. I think we all know what we're talking about now, so it's fine.
Anyway, music. That's what we're here to talk about.
I mean, first things first, congratulations on the release of Share. It's an amazing song. I've listened to it. To both of you, yes. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm not going to get over this.
I'm going to do that a lot. I'm going to be talking to you and like indirectly addressing Johnny a lot as well, I guess, for the Crouton Cannon stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, like, it's a fantastic groove. The melody is really, really memorable in the chorus. I mean, all of your, especially the chorus melodies, really hit me sort of hard. And like, after a couple of listens, every time I've been sort of singing them all day, and it's been the same with Share as well. They're really, really well written songs. But as a songwriter as well, the thing that really stands out to me is your lyric writing. And so in Share, you have obviously the song that you mentioned is about kind of the access that companies have in you and your personal data and sort of the way they use it, I suppose, and sort of will use or misuse it. And the whole idea of like chow mein and chicken satay after you'd only done 50 steps that day. It's brilliant, and it's really, really, it's really, I don't know, it's tongue in cheek, but in the best kind of way. It's being very aware of the way things are, and it's the same with Expressing. Sort of hit me in the same way, in that it was just a very you have a very interesting way of addressing topics, and especially topics that have been I mean, with songwriting, topics are covered so much. You know, like love, for example. You know, but the fact that you can, even now, after, you know, however many love songs have been written, you can still find a way to come at it in a way that hasn't been heard before is absolutely fantastic. So I guess the question after all that, heaps of mountains of after the mountains of praise, was again, like how do you find the titles of the songs? Do you pick a title first? Do you just have ideas that come? Is it a question of, like, you know, having anecdotes and sort of bits of lyrics that you put together over time and then eventually you have a song, or is it they come fully formed? How do you go about writing the lyrics?
You can answer those one at a time.
Sorry, yeah.
That was like 6 questions.
I'll see if I can remember them all. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's all quite new to me, the way I've tried to write the songs for like Cher and the other Crouton Cannon songs. I mean, when I first started writing them, I didn't know they would be songs. I thought they might be just instrumentals, but I think something in my brain kind of ticked over and realized that, maybe I could try and make, like you said, a tongue-in-cheek lyrics. And I think partly it was some kind of desire to write really unique songs. I've written sort of normal singer-songwriter songs sort of about like love and loss, that kind of thing. And I guess the approach to the music in general is just to try and write something which is still really enjoyable and like palatable, but is quite unique, a bit different. So the lyrics, you know, I've done the songwriter thing of carrying around a little pocketbook and writing down little notes. And sometimes that's worked for me, but I still often find that when I get to actually writing a song, I end up writing everything fresh for that song, frustratingly, not efficient at all. And yeah, they're sort of these. I normally get the kind of idea of the song. For these songs, it's normally like an idea that comes one way or the other. It might be an interesting story. Like for Cher, it was I heard a story about a woman who was expecting a baby. She didn't know that, but sort of throughout her pregnancy, she was getting all this marketing aimed at pregnant women. Somehow her buying habits had sort of given away to the big data companies that she was pregnant. And I thought that's just quite an entertaining thing, which is that story sort of is alluded to in the song. But then just what are the ridiculous things do Google and Amazon and Facebook know about our private lives?
It's crazy, that stuff, like how quick it could come around. I mean, it's not a music question, but it's to do with your lyrics. But like, it's crazy how fast something can come up. Like, I would literally have just searched for something on my laptop, and then I'd go on my phone and I'm scrolling Instagram, and there it is again, as if I was just viewing it to maybe see the price or see what the hell it was. And there it is, like, oh, buy it here for this.
Pops up on Wish,
Yeah.
I always find the joke with that is that often I've already bought it and then I get all these ads for the same thing. Like, oh, it's too late. Sorry.
Too late. I don't want it anymore. I find that there are, in a similar way, for sort of suggestive videos and things on YouTube, that like the YouTube algorithm, because I've had YouTube for over 10 years now, it thinks it knows me really well now. And so like, it'll push a video that it thinks that I really want. And after every video, or in all of the suggestive videos afterwards, it will keep suggesting that video for like a week, and it'll be like, no, we really do think that you'd like to watch this video. And even if, you know, and like I'll ignore it and I go, but this video, you'd really like to watch this video, and it keeps going, you know. And it is kind of freaky the way that they
the amount of Scott's bass lessons ads I've been getting. Bass playing is not about practicing chords or practicing scales or practicing theory. Skip. I think I'm gonna add so much recently. But I have a little love-hate relationship with those type of ads, actually, personally, because on the one hand, they're sort of very annoying, and there are ways to get rid of them, but you can't avoid them. But at the same time, that was the way that I personally, this is my own anecdote, that was the way I found out about the artist Lianne La Havas, because for some reason, it was pretty crazy, but I just clicked on a YouTube video and then up popped her song, Is Your Love Big Enough? It's the first time I'd ever heard of her, and I think that's the one time that I've watched a YouTube ad that's like longer, like a compulsory, non-compulsory YouTube ad for the entire length, because I was just listening to this song and I was like, oh my God, this is great. I don't think that's a common occurrence. I don't think I've received a music video in an ad like that since. Maybe an advertisement for an album, but it's more like a tailored advertisement. Yeah, so that's why I'm always just like, but I wouldn't have found out about Liana Havas at that point if it wasn't for annoying ads.
How many annoying ads is finding Liana Havas worth?
Yeah.
A lifetime.
A lifetime.
No.
You're set. Yeah. No, I agree. I can't think of any specific examples like that, but I do feel like I've discovered things that I really like through tailored ads, which are a consequence of giving up your privacy. So yeah, and I don't know where I stand on it. I know some people are dead set against it, and whenever they can. Actually, yeah, funnily, since shares come out, I think I have made a good habit of whenever you get those accept cookies pop-ups come up on a new website, I have been going through and going, nope, I'm going to reject all.
Yeah.
You're just hyper conscious.
I know, yeah. Practice what you preach.
Practice what you preach, yeah.
But
I
equally...
I'm not sure if anyone's actually written a song about that yet. That's like, probably someone has, but
I always think that like
unique.
it's the kind of song that I guess because these things, things like Facebook, social media, they're part of like common parlance now, and it's things that everyone's used to hearing, and it's not these sort of newfangled words that they were, say, 15 years ago or so. In the same way as it's almost that they seep into songwriting and sort of common language now, in the same way that like a telephone might not have done however many, because I always think about songs like listening to sort of old 60s records and things, and them talking about things like calling on the telephone. And obviously back then, maybe not in the 60s but further away, like that was quite a new thing, and obviously we just take it as sort of common, as commonly accepted things now that you can sort of use and you can allude to in songwriting, whereas obviously things like ads and social media is becoming more so, but to be able to have a song out like while it's happening, I think is a really kind of like, just in terms of like song ideas and things, it's a really cutting edge like topic of song to pick as well, which is why I like it so much.
Yeah, it's tricky. I feel like sometimes mentioning those things, like if you mention Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, there's like I guess there's the danger it really dates the song.
Yes.
If that thing isn't, if it's not a really big thing. But some things, like it's funny you mentioned that. I was just made me think of an artist I've been into, Cody Fry. He's written a couple of recent songs who they definitely, I can't think of the lyrics.
He's a proper like music cat. Like he's probably multi-instrumentalist. He plays a lot of like keys, and he's a proper good player, like keys and guitar player. It's crazy.
Yeah, but a great songwriter as well, and all like his songs reference the similar things like social media and connecting online and that kind of thing. Yeah, and it's I think it's I don't know when, but recently it feels like mentioning Facebook or like scrolling through your feed, that might be more kind of normalized enough to mention in a song.
Yeah, it's almost too on the nose, isn't it? To kind of like to mention it outright. You have to find like an oblique way of like saying what you mean, but not in a kind of exact way.
It's very current, and you're not like, I guess sometimes you can think about things in the future, like technology in the future or something, or it can even go backwards, I guess, like when Maroon 5 sings about a payphone, like that came out when cell phones were around, so there's like a bit of like why is Facebook such a weird thing to write about?
Yeah.
It's like maybe it's the brand of it, or like because it is a branded thing, it'd be like talking about, I don't know, but iPhone seems to be fine for some reason. But like, maybe it's just the branded, maybe it's something about the branding of the name just feels strange to kind of like, or maybe everyone's scared like Facebook will like take you to court for like using their, you've used our brand name in your song, we'd like 50% of the royalties, please, because like our word is selling your song for you or something. I don't know.
Weird. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of stuff gives you quite a unique voice as a songwriter as well. I was listening to a podcast that came out today which I highly recommend. It's Eric Krasno on Kraz Plus One interviewing Theo Katzman. It's like 2 hours of them. It's probably my favorite. I want to say it's my favorite podcast episode I've ever listened to. Is that episode? I mean, I guess I haven't been listening to podcasts my whole life.
I mean, you're on a podcast as well, Johnny, just to say.
But it was just so amazing because Theo Katzman is such a massive fan of Eric Krasno, and vice versa. And they were talking about Theo's songwriting and how Theo's songwriting is very, it's very unique to him. I mean, I know you two are fans of Theo as well, but the stuff that he writes about is sort of like they were saying on the podcast, spoiler alert, but like how it's sort of tongue-in-cheek and sarcastic, but it's sung in a way that is undeniably Theo Katzman pop soul rock art thing. And so like stuff like the song Like a Woman Scorned, which he sent to a bunch of female songwriters to help write it with him, which is such an interesting story, and you have to listen to this podcast after this after finishing this podcast episode, of course. But they really dive deep into how that stuff kind of happens and how Theo developed his own voice, and I can sort of see that happening here with the Crouton stuff. It's obviously I'm not really involved in the lyric writing process in terms of, I mean, Alex does write all the songs, but it's really, I mean, and I haven't attempted to write anything for the project either, which is quite an interesting thing, just in terms of like I get to interpret your songs. But I think it's just super, super unique. I mean, not that you have to think a lot about it consciously, I'm like, is this me or am I just copying stuff?
Do you mean as yourself when you're playing bass? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, being the bassist in Crouton Cannon is quite interesting because I get to just like apply myself and everything that I know to these songs that you've already written, at least the songs that we've done so far. I don't know how much you talk about it a bit not that these interviews are out because we have done an interview, but you talk about
we're so busy with demand by the media.
But yeah, you talk about how you write the songs and then they get interpreted by us, and how that's changed. Is that something that you've enjoyed doing so far, and something you want to explore in the future in terms of co-writing and stuff?
Just to wind back a little bit on what you were saying about applying yourself, and I know you were interested in that as well, Leo. That's kind of how I feel about playing guitar in your band, Leo, with Johnny as well. It feels like you bring these songs to us, and sometimes you've got a guitar part which I just learn, and that's in some ways that's enjoyable because that's so I realized that you asked me a question and I'm like
no
refusing to answer it and going off on
I was
tangent.
trying to bring it to a question rather than just I felt like I was rambling a bit and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not actually asking anything.
I'll continue answering the question that I decided to answer.
So I'm just going to go over here.
No, I will come back to that as well if you want me to, but I'll continue anyway.
It's freewheeling for a reason.
Oh yeah, of course, freewheeling. That's the tagline. Yeah, I really enjoy just learning the parts that Leo's made because he's a guitar player. Because one, that's maybe sometimes easier, but also because
these are the guitars that I play.
Yes, they are. Well, actually, only two of them.
That's
are
such a flex.
Six strings.
You could even like flex and not block any of the guitars.
I was going to say, but also, it's nice to be able to, in the same way that you transcribe somebody else's like solo or part. It's good to. It's nice to have. Oh, that's an interesting thing. I wouldn't have thought of that. So in terms of the Crouton Cannon songs then, and and Johnny's playing bass and the interpretations of it, I've really enjoyed it. As Johnny said, when I first wrote the songs, I did it through just demoing in Logic, writing all the parts out, and often it was the instrumentation first and then the vocals and the lyrics afterwards. And yeah, I'm sure Johnny can say that they were quite basic instrument parts. And yeah, when we turned up for the first rehearsal together, I couldn't stop smiling because I think just everyone's interpretation of what I had done was amazing. And it sounded like, oh, this is actually a proper like song now. It sounds like a proper band has made the song. And then when I've gone back to listen to the demos, like a couple of years after I've written them, it's a bit embarrassing how the difference between what they sounded like and what the finished songs sound like now, having been interpreted by proper musicians, recorded properly, and then, mixed and mastered professionally.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting because before those rehearsals, like I think one of the craziest things about Crouton Cannon is just how quickly and how little time it took to get everything together. Like from the point that where the songs were written. Like I don't want to speak to the pre-song, like the actual songwriting process before that, which I'm sure was very different.
Yeah,
it's sort of like once these songs landed, we just like sort of ran with them, and then the third rehearsal in, we're like, well, our third rehearsal was the recording. So.
No.
And I did wear those initial demos out, like quite a lot in terms of listening and preparing for it before we actually started jamming it. And I think I enjoyed it because you wrote these bass parts that weren't necessarily something that I would have naturally come to as a bassist. Like if I saw a chord symbol like a B flat for a credit, like I wouldn't think to play what I did on credit, or especially on Share, on the topic of Share, where the bass line is it's a bit more maraudy, like especially in the verses, it's kind of going to these inversions of the chords, these bass notes, that are a bit unexpected, I think. Whereas if I was just given an A flat there, I would probably just play an A flat. Whereas you go doom, 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 and I think every time I play that bass line, I'm always thinking like, wow, this is like it. Obviously, it doesn't feel like me because that's not something I would have made, and I think that was what you wrote on the demo.
It was something like that. Yeah, I can't remember exactly now either. Yeah. It's I don't think I don't even know. I'm sure at one point I did know what it was, but I feel like a lot of the way I wrote the demos, both like harmonically in terms of the chords, but also the parts, was just trying to listen to trying to follow my ear really. And I wrote the bass parts and of course the like the keys parts that Dan interpreted on the keyboard. I wrote them on a MIDI keyboard, so
sure.
That's why the bass. And as a guitarist, I'm sure my like natural fingering and my natural melodies would be similar to yours as a bass player within some like margin of error. But playing it on a MIDI keyboard, it's more, especially as I'm not even a keyboard player, so I don't know the scales and like the chords. So it's all just quite arduous listening.
What sounds good, right?
What sounds good?
Yeah.
What my head's saying, trying to find it. Yeah.
Yeah. That leads me on to a really interesting question that I wanted to ask in terms of like, because obviously you said that playing the demos, extrapolating the demos that Alex made and sort of interpreting, not extrapolating, and turning them into.
I like the word extrapolation.
It's a good word. Not the right word, but a good word. But you say like it sort of but you say like it sort of it brings out sort of sides to your playing, or makes you do things that you don't necessarily automatically want to do, or not want to do, but you don't, like the way that your fingers don't necessarily naturally fall on chords. And I was wondering, in terms of, I guess for both of you maybe, like in terms of playing, maybe more for you as a guitarist, Alex, sort of like, so because you say you interpret some of the parts that I play, and then some of you learn some of the parts that I play as well. Like, do you find it's something similar, that like there's certain things that I do, like when I play guitar, that you don't do that you play, and sort of that you then sort of, as you learn the part, you sort of, it makes you do different things, because it's not something that I get to experience very often. Usually if I work with songwriters, I am the harmonic sort of responsibility for it as well. So with Beck's one of the singers that Johnny and I are working with, I get sent melodies over and like finished songs, but with no chords and nothing underneath. And so like all of the chords are for me to kind of, use my tried and use the places that I'd naturally go on the guitar to interpret and then turn into songs, if that makes sense. There's nothing that kind of pushes me out of my comfort zone, but sort of makes me, there's nothing to do that's, there's no one else sort of adding any harmonic stuff in. And so like, does it change for you guys sort of like in terms of, sorry, something bring it to a question. But do you find the same thing? So like versus writing your own stuff versus like playing, for example, my stuff, like, do you find that it makes you do things that you wouldn't otherwise do?
I think maybe it just depends on the vibe. I think currently, because the existing songs do already have those complete forms, there's you can play around with it a bit, but it's sort of there, and anything else you're doing is different. Whereas now we're in a stage where we're making new stuff, and we're incorporating more different types of things that I might play. So we're writing one, I shan't name it, but I basically like Alex wrote the chords and the sort of the beat over the one that starts with D. I'm saying for Alex's reference, and the alliterative one starts with D.
Which one starts with D?
You sent it to me, and then I sort of made a bass line that I applied myself, but without too much of Alex's guidance.
Oh yeah.
And then Alex sort of took it on and then like sort of charted it out himself. and through the process of charting that demo, which doesn't exist currently, but I'm sure we'll find it in the future and reference it back to this point in the podcast. But that demo has some interesting things that you did on a MIDI keyboard that now I want to bring back into the original bass part, and now I want to put that into the bass part. So I think this sort of like new negotiation is going to be quite fun in terms of writing future Crouton Cannon songs. I don't know if that's what you want as the band leader, but I'm sure you're open to it. But it's that's what excites me for the future, I guess.
You asked that way back before I took that question on a tangent about the future. Yeah. So whereas before I was writing all the demos and I brought them to you mainly because I was really set on making some music of my own, because I was really wanting to get into it, but no one was asking me to do it. So I was like, okay, well, screw it. I'm going to make my own music then. And yeah, I mean, I think I knew sort of everyone in the band a bit, but not hugely. So I did feel a bit nervous about, being vulnerable and asking people, do you want to make some music with me? So I wanted to make like a fully like fledged offering to say like, here's a fully formed thing within reason. Do you want to play on it? Let's go and do it. And actually, yeah, as you were saying that, it was really quick. And I think looking back in some ways, it could have even been a bit reckless. It was a bit, but that equally, that's a part of, I think, the charm of what we've ended up. It was quick. But yeah, in the future, I don't intend to be like the dictator of it, really. Everyone's got their own unique musicality to bring to it. So,
yeah.
And also, I don't want to kind of run out of ideas, frankly.
Sure. I think one of the great things as well, just being in the band, this band, is that I feel like because it came together so quickly, it was almost, obviously we were on the same page, we have the same influences, but there wasn't any sort of ego in the band. Like, even though we have, like, everyone has a strong musical identity, that like Dan's like an amazing player, like Louise has got a very distinct voice, Ben has like he's such a solid drummer, and he's very well versed, and sort of I think he has a very intellectual mindset to the drums, even though he he's such an expressive drummer as well. I'm trying to say that to not be make it sound like I'm trying to infer something else.
As a drummer, he's very clever.
But also there's no ego. Like, we can tell each other stuff. that we think doesn't work or does work, like and then it's always like we always agree and we're somehow agreeable. So like the other day, like Ben was like, oh, you're playing too much there, and actually like I was thinking that while I was playing it, and I was like, God, you're like literally reading my mind right now. So there's like no argument to be had, and even if it was like something I slightly didn't agree with, I'd probably like taken on board, and I'm sure the others would do the same. So it's quite nice to be in that situation where there is no ego, like everything goes, but also there's like a democratic process to it, you know.
I think so. Sorry.
No, sorry, go on.
Sorry. I think there isn't any ego. I think everyone's. I think similarly to Leo's band, everyone's there just to serve, and you hear it so much. It's I don't know what the word is, but everyone's there to serve the song. You know, no one's there to. Even though, to be honest, I do have all the solos on all the songs, but that's beside the point. I think if anything, with Crouton Cannon anyway, we formed end of 2018, so we're not quite 2 years old, and we haven't done many gigs really. So if anything, the only thing is that we just don't know each other that well. And I mean, it might just be myself, I don't know how everyone else feels, but it feels only like recently that we've sort of started, maybe this year we've started to feel more comfortable with each other, more like, we've been getting to know each other a bit more deeply, which makes saying you're playing too much a bit easier than if you're strangers.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think I think it's one of those things where the dynamic of the personalities work, because it's not like, obviously we have a fair share in the band, but there's like, you are obviously the band leader in this band, but band leader doesn't necessarily have to mean you have the most stock, even though currently you have the most stock in the band in terms of like you're like the like a lot of it is led by you, like a lot of the initial funding is via you, so it very much is like Alex formed the band and you recruited everyone, but at the same time it's quite nice to be able to lean on that, I guess, and sometimes I guess why some bands do have issues which like historically there are so many examples to pull from when you have like multiple alphas in the band. But it's nice to just have like someone we can be like, okay, everything's going to filter through Alex. Like if Ben has an idea, if Louise has an idea, if Dan has an idea, it just all filters through Alex. And then like, so even if we have these strong ideas, there's a place for them to go to that where it will be processed by the head of the body and then by the brain.
I guess you need to have something like that in a band, I think, just like, because I mean it's handy, I guess, with Crouton Cannon, not handy, but like it's easy to serve the songs because no one's name is sort of on the band name, if that makes sense. It's not like Alex Marshall's Crouton Cannon, it's like Crouton Cannon, so like there's kind of a way of disassociating from it, and so like you can almost, although it goes through you to what is Crouton Cannon, if that makes sense. And so kind of like, and because it's Crouton Cannon, like the name itself it doesn't have anyone's sort of like personal name in it, I guess. It gives that kind of like, you can work towards something that's disassociated from yourself, which like for me, I'm getting towards that, I think, a bit more, like in that like like when I write songs, it's like it's a Leo Kelly G song, but like it's kind of I really like to kind of disassociate it from me as much as possible by the time it's sort of released and everything, which is why I'm really sort of keen to pass it over to, well, both of you guys are in the band, and Charlie and Beth as well, and sort of like to give other people a stake in it, because I feel like when other people are kind of like they feel like they have a stake in a song, or sort of like they're excited about the part they're playing, or they've got some sort of musical, personal, some sort of stake in the song, it makes it more enjoyable for them. And then seeing other people enjoying playing the stuff that I've written makes it even more enjoyable, because then at least I know, like, in terms of an audience, like if no one else is enjoying themselves in the audience, at least like my band's having a good time, and like, that the people I've brought along, at least they're having fun, kind of thing,
that day. After you'd only done 50 steps that day. With all of this access, we can reduce your exhale. We are here for you when you want to share. You think no one could possibly care. All we want from you, please don't spare no detail. Your inside voice is now for sale. Booked with your hygienist for 2:30. After you searched for the symptoms of scurvy. With all of this access, we have our best assets now. Comfort fit clothes with no polyester. You must be in your second trimester. With all of this access, we'll pick out the perfect sundress. We are here for you when you want to share. You think no one could possibly care. All we want from you, please don't spare no detail. Your inside voice is now for sale. With all of this access, we'll pick out the perfect sundress. We are here for you when you want to share. You think no one could possibly care. All we want from you, please don't spare no detail. Your inside voice is now for
Yeah. I mean, there's no right answer to this, but in terms of Crouton Cannon, does like the leading sort of thing, is that something you consciously think about a lot in terms of like, I got to do these things, or does it just come naturally in terms of like, you don't need to think about it, it just falls into place sort of things? As someone that, like, I have band led in the past, but I'm not currently leading any bands right now, but if I was into in the future, like, is that something I should really take loads of stock in, or will I be overthinking it, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, this is the first band that I've been in charge of. And yeah, what Leo was saying about having like a band name, even though it's at least founded by me, and probably, yeah, like Johnny says, even now when it's becoming probably more democratic, but maybe still, I'm still the instigator of things normally. But that was the intention, was to have one, because I think I can't think of any bands or any artists that are like named after maybe the songwriter, but they have a singer, but the name of the like act, the artist, isn't the singer. And I thought,
Yeah, you have like Dave Matthews Band, but that's it. Like,
But Dave Matthews isn't singing.
yeah. But then at the same time, it's like,
It's like the John Mayer trio, but like Steve Jordan is the main attraction.
exactly.
It would make
That
no
doesn't make any
sense.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not uber common.
No.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be one, maybe confusing as a listener or as somebody looking at it, but also, the intention was there that whilst I started it, I didn't want to be a dictator, because I really enjoy working with other people, rather than saying, not even as a dictator, but even saying, I've written this whole song, can you play this part? I really want to, one, get people's interpretations, and two, be open to writing things together, because I think, I really enjoy that. And often I find it quite hard to write things on my own. I don't know if you two have the same experience, but sometimes you get really stuck in a rut with things. Yeah, and I think I have thought a lot about sort of how sort of the band relationships work and what my role is. Like towing the line between trying to keep people happy with the work and with each other and with me, and making people keeping people involved and offering people the chance to do things, but not trying to like force people to do things or maybe feel like I am. And it's something I've struggled with, and I think it's maybe I'm only recently sort of, at least it's really weird talking to Johnny about this, but it's something that I'm only recently kind of trying to really think about, is just saying, well, it's up to you guys whether the time you put into it. I can only say let's do this, and if you go, no, I'm too busy, that's fine. Yeah.
I mean, following on from that in terms of working with people. I guess I'm quite curious, and I never really asked you, but what it was like working with Dave Holmes from Venpro, in the terms of how did you get how did you negotiate your vision for the songs with Dave, who obviously has loads of experience with different types of music? So what was that negotiation like in terms of this is how I want it to sound? Dave might have his ideas and of stuff of how he likes things to sound himself personally to his own taste.
Yeah.
Was that just a smooth process because Dave was super chill, or were there times where you had to be I want it to sound like this, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back. I mean, I think if I'm honest as well, which doesn't paint the most careful picture of me, but I think when we went into the studio, I felt like I knew what I wanted to sound like, but I don't think I really did. He was asking, "Oh, what do you want the drums to sound like?" And he was I think he was asking me because I'd booked the session, and I was like, here's a Corey Wong song, because I really like Corey Wong, and it's a bit like that.
Do you like Corey Wong?
What? No way. What?
What a coincidence.
I know.
It's almost as if he's emblazoned across my chest in reverse form right now.
Yeah. But then I think, the way I think Dave was pushing things a bit, but also he then talked to sort of Ben about the drums, for instance. It really wasn't like a Corey Wong sound.
Sure, yeah.
And I think, I really think Dave was instrumental in getting the sound right, to be honest, with that. And also my guitar sound, again, I thought I knew what I wanted with it. And then Dave suggested, let's make it a bit dirtier, a bit gnarlier. And I was like, yeah, that's really cool.
That's really
I really love that. And that's what I've actually tried to sort of model the sound of the guitar on that now.
Yeah.
Like, I love that sound. Let's try and make it like that from now on. But yeah, he's a really chill guy, really laid back. And he had lots of helpful ideas, and he was questioning a few things. Like there were some harmonies that didn't quite work that we put on after the recording session. But yeah, he was also open to a few ideas that I had. Yeah, it's hard to think back now and really remember it in detail, but I remember it just being really relaxed and quite open. But he was really he chipped in quite a lot of ideas actually, which is why I've sort of also switched. I think just my understanding of his role. Like when we booked him, I thought he was the engineer, but I realised that hearing people talk about recording and the whole process of making music, that he was more of a co-producer really. He did a lot for the sound, and I think even some of the arrangements and the parts whilst we were recording, he weighed in to make them better.
Yeah. And it's a difficult thing to negotiate. I think it's super underrated, like when you think about recordings to songs, and there's so much that goes on behind the scenes for it to get from the song to the actual recording you listen to for 3 minutes on Spotify, you know. And like where, I mean, there's different ways you can, I guess, come across a producer. Like you guys have had producers work for you that aren't necessarily your friends, you know. Like you have people where you're just working with a friend, the friend produces it, or you and the friend produce it, and then you guys maybe consider yourself co-writers or co-producers of the track. So I'm literally in this scenario, I'm thinking about Jack Stratton and Tyler Duncan, who helps engineer and produce. Jack Stratton is technically the producer in Wolfpack, but Tyler Duncan is very much there. Like he's sort of the real MVP, as one might say. Yeah. And in terms of like a lot of the studio stuff is his. He's like the guy engineer. He's the guy pressing record. He's the guy like miking things in different ways, and that's as much as part of the creative process. Obviously, you credit them on the track, and then they get their fair dues. Or, but then working with someone that you've hired, you know, is like a completely different thing. And how do you like? I guess upfront you might have agreed, like, okay, you're gonna get this credit for the song, even if you add these creative components to the song. That's like there's just that weird negotiation. So why I'm pausing right now is because it's tricky. You know, there's no like straight answer to that. It just depends on the situation, depends on the personality, I guess. I know Leo and I, we've worked with different types of people. And yeah, it's like, where do you draw the line between writer and producer? And, you know,
it's a really, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I mean, I've never worked with a producer who's sort of like, I always think, again, going back to the whole sort of like having some sort of stake in it. Like, I think if you give someone a stake in something, they're a lot more willing to work, you know, to get the best out of whatever their role is. So like, and if for me, like the only producer that I've worked with was the guy who did Under a Blue Sky, Sean Kenny. And in my mind, it was kind of like, because we were hiring him as a producer, and obviously it was his studio we used as well. You know, for him to have the stake in it, my reaction was, okay, well, we need to pay him for everything that he does, and not sort of like, you know, feel like he's shortchanged or anything. And so like everything that I did, like it was paid beforehand, it was paid up front, it was paid in full. And as a result of that, he felt that obviously we were serious about making a record that sounded really good, and he allowed us, you know, that we booked like 10 hours, and like every day we went to like 14, 16 hours. Like he was willing to put in like extra hours for nothing. He was happy to sort of do extra mixing and mastering because he felt that we were serious about making it sound good. And so as a result, he was as well. And obviously we've worked with Charlie Rolfe as well for some of the function stuff that we've done. And obviously Charlie is as much part of the function band that we put together as well. And I think, again, it gives people that feeling of, okay, well, you know, this is, my name is going on this. And so people want to, you know, you want to uphold, you know, whatever reputation you've got or whatever. But, you know, as a producer, I think obviously they want to make the song sound good, but it's difficult as to I think you just have to have the agreement with them beforehand, I guess, whether they, whether you give them a share of the royalties, whether you give them a share, or whether you just, you're going to keep doing that every time I say share, aren't you?
Yeah. It's annoying. Sorry.
No, it's but I'm gonna play with it. But yeah. So whether it's that or whether it's just we'll hire you for the studio time and sort of like I guess it's just it's sort of horses for courses, isn't it? In terms of the agreement you come to each time. I mean, like, how was it? Was obviously you said the guy that you worked with is a really chill guy, but sort of like, did you have like an agreement with him beforehand, or was it just something that sort of was just unspoken, or how is it with you, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, it was unspoken, really. Like, technically, we hired the studio, and he co-owns the studio. And the only contact I had with Dave before the session was I sent him the demos, I think. There wasn't really any sort of discussion of what his role would be, other than he's the engineer, which I think I was ignorant of the time. But as an engineer, what you could do really is just sit in the control room and just you hit record when they ask you to. I guess you'll be asked to put some mics up, But he was much more, he was,
involved.
Way more involved.
Yeah.
He was like saying that sounds crap. Try this guitar effects pedal. That song isn't working. Can you not in such harsh ways either. He was much more constructive. And just trying to make sure we were all in good spirits as well. So it wasn't really discussed, but I've realised that he was taking on much more of a production role, which initially I didn't credit on our first single credit. I did not credit that role. And I don't know whether by rights, we should have paid him more for that. I mean, probably really. If
it's a spectrum, isn't it? It's sort of like it's kind of like you going from the bare minimum of what I mean, it's the same with I guess with with singers and guitarists and drummers as well. Sort of like you have like the bare minimum of what you're required to do to fit the description of a sound engineer or someone who owns a studio. Is you just put the mics up, press play. And the same with like if it's a drummer, just like here's a beat, play the beat, or you can take it all the way up to like having musical ideas, sort of suggesting ideas and arrangements for the song, sort of fixing harmonies and things, which is what Sean Kenny did for all of my songs as well. He sort of he worked with the guitarist, the string players, because he'd had 40 odd years experience in the studio and a lot of experience with the kind of music that I was trying to make as well. So he was saying, okay, would you want it to sound more like this side of it? Do you want it to do this? Do you want it to do that? And so he had lots of ideas as well, all of which were really, really greatly received. And the same with, it's what makes a great sort of engineer. And it's, I guess, in the same way as what makes a great, sort of drummer, sort of taking, okay, well, here's the drum beat you've got, and here's what I can do with it. Like this is how do you want it to serve the song? Where's the song going? What's the song about? How can I, punctuate certain words with certain drum beats? Can I help with, and the same with guitar, bass, keyboard, everything. It is a very, and I guess because obviously it's not something you see in a live performance, and you never see the physical evidence of it. Obviously you hear it,
Sure.
but you don't sort of see, the producer's face on the record or anything like that. I think it is very underappreciated, isn't it? The role of an engineer / producer / whatever other role they sort of just decide to take on as they go.
Yeah, I guess what I can definitively say is that I can 100% recommend Dave Holmes and Ben Pro and Soup Studio as a place to record. It was just absolutely wonderful experience. And it was on it's such a vital part of it, but it was recorded on a boat.
Yeah.
It was absolutely, I don't know how many boat studios there are in Europe.
No,
Maybe
I
more
know
than
that one
think.
and Dave Gilmour's boat, but I don't know if that's it's not open to the public.
Yeah, it's not somewhere you can hire. Not Crouton Cannon accessible.
No. I know that studio would be amazing if it weren't on a boat, because it looks great. Clearly, the staff are great. It sounds great. The gear is great. But then, it's on a boat on the Thames. It's insane.
It's one of the raddest things. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah, but this whole definition of, I don't know, the roles behind music, it's even more muddied now. Whereas, a producer is somebody who maybe contributes, I don't know, any ideas to the sound of a song or how it's going to go, maybe even how it's arranged. But you get producers now for pop music, who are essentially, they write and compose everything on the song, and then they get a singer to sing over the top. They kind of, the arrangers, the composers, the songwriters, they do everything.
Yeah.
So I don't even know what a producer is anymore, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you draw the line? Yeah.
It's become very grey around the edges, I suppose, hasn't it? What is a producer, and when it stops being a producer and into like an artist? Because like there are some producers, like people like David Guetta, like who is a producer, but then like is a lot of the time more famous than the people he works with, and it's kind of like that's sort of, I don't know how many 30, 40 years ago that would have been completely inconceivable, because obviously it's the artist who sells it, whereas now it's almost like having a producer work on it and having their name on it almost sells it more than the artist, and the producer can make an artist, whereas obviously the other way around, it used to be that an artist would make a producer, So it's really interesting how it's sort of flipped around over the last few years, which is really cool.
I mean, I'm curious, like, just to you, Alex, like, what do you think of yourself as, in terms of, I mean, I guess, obviously I think of you as a guitarist, but I mean, it's not something I guess you have to think about, because obviously, but I guess you do teaching as well. Like, do you think of yourself more as a session musician, or?
No, probably don't. I think that's kind of why I did want to be years back. I wanted to be a session guitarist.
Yeah, me too.
Maybe in the same way that I mean, I guess I sort of am a session a guitarist for Leo, I suppose, but I wanted to be that in a more lucrative context, making some money.
Hey, it may still be. It may still be.
Yeah, I'm in it. You know,
was guitar your first instrument? Was that your way into music?
Yeah. How did it start?
Oh, how did it start? Yeah. So my first instrument was in primary school. I picked up the trumpet in year 3.
Nice.
Yeah, and I sort of played in the school band, and then the sort of the local music service band in Lewisham on Saturdays. And then, regretfully, I didn't think it was cool anymore. So I dropped out sort of around secondary school, and I picked up the guitar. And I had lessons at school for a while. And I think, even then, I didn't really take it that seriously. It was just something I was doing. But so I felt, you have to have a hobby. I'll do guitar. But then my sort of friend originally from primary school, but then I ended up going to the same secondary school a bit later, that almost forced me to be in his like indie rock band.
Right.
I really begrudgingly went to our band rehearsals at first, but then I really fell in love with it. And like we were making our own songs, rehearsing in his basement, which was also his kitchen. So his like mum and dad would walk through regularly. Yeah, it was just really amazing. Just like, we were making our own songs, and that's how I really fell in love with it. And then, it was just playing in the bands of friends throughout sort of school and into uni. My dad was a drummer, so we had a drum kit at home, and I picked that up. I was my group of friends at school were trying to form a band. No one else had drums, so I just learnt the drums. To an acceptable standard. I'm not a drummer, but I can drum.
Fair. I mean, I feel like you've played in a lot of different types of genres. Like, you're quite a versatile musician. You've played in like big bands and stuff, but also obviously like funk stuff. Is this funk stuff the stuff that just comes naturally to you? Or do you feel like this is your voice now, or are you thinking more like bigger mindset? In terms of like you, I guess, right now, and like where you want to be.
Yeah.
Sorry, it feels like an interview question, but
No, it's a good question.
I guess it is an interview.
Almost like it's an interview.
Job interview.
I think I have played a few different things, or I feel like I've dabbled in a few things. Like, I played in sort of big bands whilst I was at uni, playing jazz, which I really enjoyed. And I was trying to pick up a bit of work, like playing classical guitar at people's weddings.
Oh yeah.
But I haven't done much of that, to be honest. And then like playing sort of acoustic-y fingerstyle stuff, a bit like Leo's style. Maybe not. I haven't delved quite as far into that. And then I've always enjoyed funk music. When I was a teenager, I was really into the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I had a band with some friends, which was almost just trying to like worship them and be them essentially.
I completely feel you. It's like,
Yeah.
That was a lot of people's teenage years.
yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, the last, well, sort of almost immediately before trying to start Crouton Cannon, I realized that was what, maybe not, I mean, I don't know whether I'd say I'm an expert in funk at all, especially as the guitar is often quite sort of simple. It's more percussive, but it's kind of what brings me the most joy, I think, as a musical genre that I'm playing.
Yeah.
And I think similar to maybe like playing big band guitar, it's not necessarily the most complicated thing to play on guitar, but it's just really rhythmic and groovy, and you can just sit back and enjoy it rather than sometimes feeling like you're having to really concentrate on what you're doing and you can't enjoy the music in the moment. And I think even more than that, really recently, like it's funny you saying you think I'm a guitarist. I mean, I guess I am because I do.
Just because I know you from that context, but that's why I'm sort of asking: is there another,
You think I'm a guitarist? Watch this.
like whips out a flute?
I know, yeah. No, I mean, I guess, I'm like, I teach guitar. That's how I make most of my income. And I've played in like rock and pop function bands to some extent. But I guess, my future, I guess we're talking pie in the sky. And maybe my role in Crouton Cannon, I feel like I'm more of a songwriter or a composer.
Sure.
Maybe to some extent a producer.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think again that's just where I find the most joy is just in. I feel like when you're doing those things, you're bringing something into existence that doesn't exist. A new song, a fully fledged thing, which I find really hard to do. But when you finished it, it's a really amazing feeling to have just created this thing out of nothing. Whereas, as much as I really enjoy like playing guitar, like learning a part or creating a part, it's not quite as, it just doesn't resonate as much with me. And I kind of acknowledge the limitations of my ability and also my time. That I'd love to be a great guitarist, but I haven't got the time to sort of maintain my practice, which I think, and I can, you have to scroll through Instagram and you just see 100 better guitarists than you. So I feel like, and I also accept that everyone's got the unique voice on an instrument, that's always true. But I feel like when you're composing music, it's totally subjective. There's no standard. It can be a simple punk rock song and it can be great. It doesn't have to be technically amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious, sort of just to get a bit gear nerdy as we're talking about guitars and stuff. I mean, like your telly, it's not exactly a Fender telly, right? It's like another. Like, where'd you get that guitar?
Well, that was my like.
Sorry, this is a kind of bit of a tangent.
No, it's fine. That was my first ever guitar was a PV Raptor, which is like a student guitar, proper like the first guitar you'd buy. It comes with a little amp. But it's a Blade Levinson guitar, which really was just I asked my guitar teacher in secondary school, I've got some money to buy like a good guitar, not just a student one. What should I buy? And he's like, I'll buy that. And I did, just trusted him. And for a long time, it's funny, I'm looking at it right now, it's over here. I was, I kind of wrote it off as, that's, it's not a Fender or a Gibson or a really well-known brand. But it's the only kind of telly style guitar I own. And recently I've kind of fallen in love with it, I guess. It's actually quite, I really quite like it. It's quite, again, it lends itself to the kind of gnarly sound. And especially, I think within funk music as well, I think my first instinct when I was thinking about what guitar to use for the band was that use a Strat. Corey uses a Strat.
I was gonna think. I was thinking, like you're using a telly in this funk stuff. That's like not that conventional. I mean, sorry if I've just taken the words out of your mouth, but
no, I think did Prince ever use a telly? I feel like Prince used a telly.
Yes.
Prince used a telly.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
But apart from that,
icon.
but I think generally it's quite unusual. yeah, and also like because like when going into it, as much as I love Corey Wong, I was trying my best to differentiate myself from him as a like guitarist in a funk band. So I had a strat, but I was, rather than using position 4 as Corey Wong prefers, I was trying to use position 2. You know,
just to be the other guy.
Exactly. Yeah, but I feel like using a telly, for me it works rather than it being deliberately different. I actually like the sound of it. Yeah,
and I guess it wasn't going to be the Les Paul as well, because I know you own a Les Paul
style. And I got I got a few years ago off a family friend who owned it, who he died of cancer really sadly, but he graciously was giving away his guitars to like some of his friends. And I got that, and I love that. I normally use it for like when they're happening, sort of the rock function gigs I do, which is quite nice. But I think, I mean, sometimes you do hear people playing that kind of guitar for funk, but I think it sounds pants. Just doesn't do it for me.
It's a bit thick, isn't it? In terms of the sound. It's a bit full and a bit thick. Kind of, you want to have that sort of like dancey, thin sound of funk guitar, kind of like which comes from a telly or like or just from a single coil pickup, I guess. More, it just gives it that kind of like bite, or just it gives it that funk, whatever it is. It just that thing. You just you get it from a Strat or a telly. I guess what I was gonna. Well, I mean, you've mentioned that you as you're progressing in your musical journey, you're seeing yourself more as a songwriter, and sort of as a composer and arranger of music. And it's a question I get to ask quite a lot of the time. But like, so obviously you started quite a long time ago now. But like, if you had like a piece of advice that you'd give to your starting out self as a year 3 trumpet player or as a secondary school guitar player, sort of what would you say sort of now as your fully fledged self?
I don't know whether I'd take the advice, because I feel like even now I don't take it, but I know the thing that I want to do for myself and that I should have done is just to kind of follow what I wanted to do more. Like I actually asked myself, what do you actually want to do? And go do that. Because I felt like, a bit like I was saying, I was spending a lot of, and maybe it was necessary, but I was spending a lot of years just kind of going, oh, I'll be a jazz guitarist, I'll be a rock guitarist, I'll be a classical guitarist, I'll
with matching poses as well.
all these things. Doing things that I think I wasn't that passionate about. It just felt like, oh, I should do that because that would be good. Whereas it's taken up until now. Well, I say that it's taken up until now to kind of find something that I'm really passionate about and just really stick with it. And equally, I ended up studying science at uni, and I did consider studying music when I was a teenager, but I was put off a bit. I was put off it a little bit, but I didn't go down that way, and I kind of wonder how things would have been different, a little bit. But you can never. Those kind of questions are always funny, because I'm happy with where I am now, and it's a bit like that butterfly effect. If you change one thing, what would have been different? Would I have gone to music college, become really amazing, but then burnt out and be in some other job that's not, completely forgotten about music? Who knows? But I think that advice would still remain. It's more just, and I need to remind myself to do that now as well. Is just do the stuff you want to do.
And I guess currently, I guess Crouton Cannon is the thing right now, right? So, I'd like to think. So, I think, it's nice to have like a focus, a current thing that we're all channeling our energies into and creating these things. So, I mean, it's awesome being in a band with you. So, I think it'll be
likewise.
Great to get the band on this show. I mean, we have done a Zoom interview, and it's it was really fun and it was great, but it's difficult to get everyone like in sync, and you have to really target the questions towards each other. But it'd be so awesome to get the rest of them on the show. Just to chat about whatever,
I've admired them from afar as well, and I've only sort of met I've met Louise and I've met Ben, but I've never met the keyboard player at all, Dan. So like I'm really looking forward to like even just getting to chat to you guys.
I would argue
he's
the most chatty of the five of us. So
Yeah.
you haven't seen nothing yet.
I'd love to. It'd be great. Just to tell you guys how much I love everything you guys have been doing so far and how much of a fan I am. Even just to get that to say, that to all of your faces personally, would be great. But to talk about more stuff would be amazing too. Congrats on Share. It's an amazing song. Congrats on all the releases so far. And I can't wait for everything else that happens next as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm sure they'd all love to come on. They've all, Ben, Louise, and Dan are infinitely interesting people personally and musically as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, cheers for having you, Alex.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's been great.
It feels weird to say again, just to bookend it. It's just like, I'm in your band, we chat every day. But
yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, it's been really nice to just chat music and my life.
Thank you so much for tuning into Sonic Bytes. If you liked what you heard, drop us a like or follow us on Spotify, Anchor FM, or wherever you get your podcasts, or drop us a comment on YouTube at Leo Kelly G Music, Instagram at Sonic Bytes, or Twitter at Sonic Bytes Pod. More episodes coming very soon. Stay tuned.